Hey friends, welcome back to She's At It Again. Today we are making cookie dough brownies, and the reason I'm making these is because there's going to be a fundraiser and I've agreed to donate a dessert for an auction. So if the words cookie dough brownies doesn't spark your interest, then I don't know what does, because these are fabulous. If you make these, just prepare yourself. People are going to want the recipe. This original recipe had, you started with a box mix of brownies. That's not what we're doing here. We're going to start with real ingredients, and we're going to make our brownies from scratch. So let's get started. This does not take long, actually, because I have all my ingredients laid out here on the counter, so you wouldn't have to follow me all around the kitchen. So for right now, we're starting with 1/4 cup of butter, which is a 1/2 stick of butter. And I've had it in this bowl with the lid on overnight, and as you can see, it is very, very soft. I can just spread that around like that. To that, we're going to add 1/4 cup of oil, and I'm just going to use olive oil. I have my oven preheating right behind me to 350 degrees. So hopefully that oven will be preheated about the time we get all of our ingredients ready to put in there. To this, we're going to add 2 eggs. This does not require a mixer. If you want to use the mixer for the first part, that's fine. Once you add the flour, don't use a mixer. All right, we're going to give these a stir. One teaspoon of vanilla, and this is my homemade vanilla with lots of vanilla seeds in the bottom of it. And yes, that's a medicine dropper. That's the easiest thing I've found to measure out vanilla with without wasting so much. I certainly don't want to pour it in a measuring spoon and have it go off the edge of it. I'd be having to soak it up on off the counter with something. We need a little bit more than 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So here's what that looks like. And this will help our ingredients to emulsify, kind of looking. This is a full cup of sugar. I use unbleached sugar that's non-GMO, and it's actual sugar cane sugar, and it's called Zulka. You can get it at your big store in your local town, I'm sure. To this, we're going to add 4½ tablespoons of cocoa. And this is the kind of cocoa I'm using, but just use your favorite kind. If you like a darker cocoa than this. If you have some really good quality cocoa, this would be the thing to use it on because you can actually tell the difference in this. Some things you can't. It's just overpowered by other flavors, but this is definitely got the chocolate flavor going on. Okay, so 4.5 tablespoons. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just going to have enough. And 1/2. Now, I probably added a little bit more than 4.5, but that's perfectly fine with this recipe. If you have a favorite brownie recipe you want to use on this bottom layer, that's perfectly fine. This is just a really good version of this. I've tried several things with this, and this is one of my very favorites. So the first layer we're going to bake in the oven for about 25 minutes, and we have to let it cool off completely to room temperature before we add our second layer to it. The second layer will not get baked. Then we'll put a chocolate drizzle on the top of this. So don't make the mistake of thinking you have to bake this twice, because you don't. You just have to bake the brownies. All right, now we're going to add our 1 1/4 cups of flour. And you don't want to overmix this. Just get this mixed up enough to where there's no dry ingredients left in it. Okay, this is what our mix looks like once we get it stirred up. I have a little bit of flour left on the spatula, but that shouldn't be a problem. Okay, let's set that aside. You are going to need a 9 by 13 baking pan. Now, if you have a ceramic or a glass baking dish, that would be great. Coat the bottom of it with butter or coconut oil and set it aside. It's an older aluminum baking pan, and I'm going to line this with parchment. And the reason being, I have to cut these in perfect little squares for presentation, so these can be auctioned off. All in one package, of course, but I want them to be in perfect little squares. So I'm going to be taking mine out after it's baked and topped. And I want to be able to have a clean cut. Now, instead of pushing this down in here and fighting with this parchment paper because it keeps popping back out, we're going to wad it up. Flatten it out. And now it stays in the pan. So we're going to pour our batter in and smooth it out. Ah, there's our oven going off. Yay. The parchment does not have to be oiled, greased, nothing. Just put it directly on the parchment. It will come off. Get my offset spatula here, see if that helps to get it to the sides. Make sure you have it evenly spread out because there will be a tendency to leave it thicker in the center than you have it on the edges, and that's where it cooks the fastest, is on the edges. So you want to make it just as evenly distributed in the pan as you can possibly get it. Okay, I think that's even. All right, we're going to pop this in the oven. Like I said, it's at 350 degrees. We'll let this cook for 25 minutes, and we'll be back and see what it looks like after that. Okay, our brownies are done, and we want to take those out of the oven. Perfect. Okay, that's what they look like. Nothing necessarily special about those, just brownies, but they are homemade. But let's set those aside, and we're going to let those cool completely. And when I say completely, I mean as though you can touch them and not even know you're touching anything that's warm. All right, next thing we want to do, and we're going to do this ahead of time, we're going to take our chocolate chips. This is our chocolate chips right here. We're going to put a cup of them in a heat-proof pan. These are bittersweet chocolate chips, and these are some of my absolute favorite on this planet. They're so incredibly good. But if you'd rather have milk chocolate, by all means, use milk chocolate. Whoopsie. We're going to put a tablespoon of olive oil in just a heat-proof dish. And get all of it out of there. Put our chocolate chips in. And we're going to place these in that hot oven that we just took our brownies out of. Now the oven is off, but we're going to put these in there so they can melt. This is going to be our glaze on the top. So once they melt, they won't start getting hard again necessarily, especially if they're in that warm oven. But we'll be back when these brownies cool off, and we're going to make our filling to put on the top of it. So stay tuned, and I think you'll be interested in this. All right, let's get going on our filling. Or actually, it's a topping. It's not really a filling. I'd call it a topping. So in this bowl, we have a half cup of butter, which is 1 stick. And this has been in that bowl all night with the lid on it. So it has come to room temperature, and it's very, very soft. This part you do need a mixer for. If you don't have a mixer, it's not going to be a deal breaker, but it's just not going to be as smooth and fluffy as it would be if you used a mixer. So to that butter, we are going to add a half cup of brown sugar. This is the brown sugar that I took from the rock hard steak the other day and put a roll in it, and now it's soft, so it's kind of miraculous. So just press your cup up against the side of a container or something to kind of pack it in there. You don't even have to touch it with your hands. Half cup of brown sugar. And then we have a 1/4 cup of regular unbleached granulated sugar. We'll get a teaspoon of vanilla. And 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. Now I use unsalted butter, so this is where the 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt comes in. If you use salted butter, you just have to kind of use your own discretion. But I tend to like a salty sweet. I don't like something that's overly sweet, so the salt really tempers that down a lot. So I always opt for a little bit of salt in my sweet. All right, we're going to whip this up until it gets nice and fluffy. That is pretty fluffy right there. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of milk to this mixture. This is the 1/4 cup, so I'll fill that about halfway full. And that should be about 2 tablespoons. Beat that a little bit more. And then we're going to add a full cup of flour to this, because it's not really cookie dough if it doesn't have flour in it. We can go without the eggs. Notice there's no eggs in it, so you're not messing with raw eggs, but we are putting a cup of flour in it. And this is just unbleached, plain organic flour. Makes a little bit of a mess because that flour just tends to fly out of it whether you want it to or not. Now, since we're not baking this, it really doesn't matter if you overmix it with the mixer. Unlike if you were making regular cookie dough, you only want to mix it until it just gets wet, then you stop. You don't want to make them so tough. But this is not going to be baked, so who cares? All right, here's where your options come in. You can either mix your chocolate chips into this And we have a half cup of just regular, those organic chocolate chips. We're going to put that in there, or you can wait until you spread it in the pan and then put the chocolate chips on top of it. Either way is fine. They're both going to be just as delicious either way, so it really doesn't matter. I'm just going to put mine inside there because we are going to have that chocolate drizzle on the top. And I'm going to clean a little bit of this mixture off the beaters just because, honestly, if I leave it on there, I might just eat it before I wash the beaters. So we'll be safe and use it in this. I know my limits. Chocolate chip cookie dough is not my kryptonite, but I would probably sneak a taste of it. But now brownies, that's my kryptonite. That's why it's good that these are leaving the house as pretty much as after I make them and get them chilled and packaged up real pretty. But yeah, if they stuck around at my house long, they would be mine. Okay, that's better. I do not like to waste anything. That's not a big secret. See how pretty that cookie dough looks? Yum. All right, we'll get our pan back out. These are cooled completely. Remember, I've left and ran 3 errands, and then I've come back. So this is completely cooled. So we'll put our cookie dough on top of this, and then we'll spread it out. All right, we'll take our offset spatula right here. These are so handy. If you don't have one, I would suggest checking them out. And probably, honestly, if you have a Hobby Lobby in your town, they probably have offset spatulas in their cake decorating supplies, and they have such good sales going on periodically that it would be hard to overspend on something like that, especially when they use as often as I do. I'll wind up lifting this out of here to cut these, so that's why we're leaving it in the pan to frost them, because it doesn't really matter. It'll just get on the sides of the parchment, and we're going to take it off the parchment anyway. Just try to get as even as you can, but as far as getting it smooth, honestly, look at me. Nobody's going to care. Nobody is going to care if that brownie is smooth, because these are so good. It could be looking like a lump on top, and they do not care. These are so good. They'll be in a sugar coma by the second one anyway, so it doesn't really matter what they look like. All right, just trying to get pretty much evenly distributed on here. I don't want anybody having a fight over who got the biggest piece. All right, I'm going to get our, I can feel flour on that countertop. That's not good. Oh well. All right, I'm going to get my chocolate chips out of here. The oven is still a little bit warm. Let's see, I might use a smaller spatula for that. All right, I want you to be able to see this. I just let them sit in that warm oven. It was not hot in there, but it was the residual heat from baking the brownies. So if we just stir this enough, it'll get nice and smooth. I texted my sister earlier. She was texting me something, and I texted her back in response, and I said, I'm doing a video on cookie dough brownies, and she said, ooh, yum. And then she said, her words of wisdom, because she's the one I got the recipe for years and years ago, she said, the one thing I've learned is do not overcook those brownies. She said, you want to leave them a little bit undercooked, because otherwise they do not taste the same. She said it's like a 30-second difference in whether they're undercooked or too cooked. So, words from the master. Tracy says, don't overcook these. So, just a reminder. And she's made enough of these. She should know. Trust me. She's made a lot of these. She had 2 boys. Okay, that mixture is nice and smooth. We're going to put it on this, and I think I'm just going to spread it out with that offset spatula once I get it on here. You can drizzle this on, you can pipe it on in a design, or you can just spread it on. Okay, and that's what they look like. I'll film these and give you a picture of them when I get them all packaged up and into their container. Right now I'm going to place these in the fridge so they can chill. The chocolate on the top will get a little hard and crisp, and they'll be easier to slice, but maybe I'll show the slicing process after a while. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we look forward to sharing something with you real soon. But try these cookie dough brownies. I'm telling you, it's a winner. You will be quite the hero. See you, friends.